budget model and what you're looking at doing. And then you'll put it to your 411. But the biggest things when we talk about the budget model is lead with revenues, not expenses. Playing red light, green light. So knowing when you can spend more money to reinvest back into your business, or whenever you're looking at profit and loss, it's at a point that you need to reevaluate where you're spending it. Stick to the budget and then get into a rhythm.
So if you're someone, don't raise your hand. If you're someone that doesn't have a profit and loss, maybe you don't keep this yet. My advice would be, so you've just went through a day of planning out your business for next year, right? You know how many units you want to sell. You know what your gross income should be, right? Don't have the mindset that it's got to be perfect to start. Have the mindset that you've got to start before it can ever be perfect. And come up, you've got percentages, create the percentages. Maybe you don't know what your expenses are exactly. Maybe you don't know what your cost to sell is. That's okay right now. So you're better off to just start, put your percentages in, create a budget for next year based on what you believe it will be, and then put it into your 411 and track it next month. And then you have a budget, and then you will have an actual. And if you'll do that, you'll eventually learn what your expenses are to help you prepare for the future.
Rachel mentioned red light, green light. I just want to make sure if it wasn't mentioned earlier in the course today, that's one of the greatest ones I could have mentioned is to go, okay, if you have 3 lead gen strategies and it's $1,000 to this one, $1,000 to this one, and $1,000 to this one, let's just say hypothetically, and then you're getting a, 7 or 8 times rate of return on this and a 4 times rate of return on this, and then you're getting a 1 times rate of return. You're actually getting your money back. Chuck that sucker, red light on that thing, put that $1,000 back into the one that's giving you an 8 to 10,000, 10 times rate of return. That's kind of like a red light, green light. Would you agree with that?
Yes. So to take that same concept, if you had $100,000, maybe it was an inheritance, you got $100,000 and you were going to put it in the stock market, what would you expect back? I mean, do we approach our expenses the same way? Because the way I look at it is, rather than give that money away and not get a return on it, I'd rather spend it on my family or take my family on vacation. I mean, I love my wife and kids. If I'm going to spend my time and money somewhere, I would rather be with my family. So, right? I mean, if I'm not getting a return on it, then why do it? I'll just put it back into my family.
Yeah. Chasing your gross commission income instead of looking at the investment. Whenever for COVID, when it first happened, there was an initiative through KWRI that the market centers, they had to go through every line item on their profit and loss and establish if it's an A, B, or C expense. An A expense is something that's critical for you to run your business and you need to have it. A B expense is something that you think is great to have and yet you don't really know where it's at. And then a C expense is it's just a luxury. And so for the B expenses, we were told you have to cut that in the next week. And then for the C expenses, we were told you had to cut it that day. So going every month through your line by line on your profit and loss and really tracking what that return on investment is to see if you're really spending that money. I mean, heck, when we go to all these conventions and there's all these vendor booths and this is what it can do for your business, are people really tracking that? Because their tagline is, it's just one more sale and it's paid for itself. But do you need that for that business, or is it more of just a lead generation activity you could apply back into your business?
We call those shiny objects.
I can't tell you how many times I personally didn't experience this. When you don't watch this part of it closely and regularly, then it's really easy to see, oh, it's just this much per month. Oh, you know what? That's not even that big of a deal. And then next thing you know, these expenses add up. And if you don't watch your return on them, or did you plan on the expense, they add up.
And when you have a great month of real estate and you're rolling in, it's easier to spend that. And then next month you're like, oh no, where is this money coming in from that's going to pay for these?
Say that again.
It's like it can be death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah. And when they say the term is more manage your expenses, not cut your expenses, because a lot of those expenses you need to run your business, but how can you manage them at a rate that will give you the return that you're needing?
And I loved, and I'm just my last comment. I loved in the beginning of this when we were preparing for this, and they really pointed out that that a lot of agents look at this as though it's a responsibility, that it's a chore they have to keep up with, rather than this is my my chance to invest. Where do I go? Where do I choose to invest? Because when we talk about wealth building and investing in the stock market, it's exciting. It is exciting when we're talking about doing it on a small scale.
And the importance of accurately keeping your books, because what if at one point you wanted to sell a business? Well, maybe not your real estate business, but any other business you're operating, they're going to want to look at your books. And so making sure that those are accurate and you can show where the money's coming in from is huge.
So my idea that I had with the college, I did some version of that and I still do it. And my person comes in once a week and they're there for about an hour and they input everything into QuickBooks for me. They write checks for me. I sign them, but they write checks. They give me a profit and loss. They do everything. So when they come in every week, they're giving me a month to date and last month's, and they print it off. They give it to me and whatever checks I need to sign to send out. And it costs me an hour's worth of work a week.
It all goes back to what you focus on expands. And if you're looking at your numbers, if you're paying attention to those dollars, you're going to expand those dollars. You're going to be more wise with those dollars. You're going to be putting them in the places that they should be going rather than all the places they could be going.
And that was the comparison we were talking about is you can have a CPA that prepares your books and that's great. However, you're the CEO of the company. So your CPA is going to tell you how to avoid jail, what to do with your taxes, and where you can fit in the tax law. And you as a CEO is going to say, how am I going to run my business? What am I going to do with this profit? Am I going to reinvest it? Or what else can I do to add more value to it? So there's a difference.
And partially that's why when you look at our chart of accounts, it might look differently than how your CPA would set it up, because their main goal is to keep you from paying taxes. As a CEO, your main goal is to increase your bottom line, your profit. So your CPA and your CEOs look at it differently. They can look at the same thing, just they have different intentions at the end of the day.
It's a great perspective. And I also, for my Know Your Numbers class, I've created a very generic Excel profit and loss sheet. So if you guys want me to send that to you, I'd be more than happy to. Just send me an email. And it just has your income coming in minus your cost of sales, your expenses, put in your tax percentage, and it'll kind of give you an idea for a net profit. However, that's just a stepping stone then to getting into your QuickBooks or your CPA, having that meeting. So anybody have any questions or ahas? Yeah, here.
Just share a personal for me. So it took me 1.5 years of increased production and focus on the budget model to repay the mistakes that I made in the first 2.5 years in the business. So I actually did more business, didn't make any more money for my family because I had to correct all the mistakes that I made from not paying attention to this when I first started. So this is huge for me, and I'm still learning stuff on it, but make sure you guys are actually putting, even if it's 1 or 2 things, put it into practice.
So give us 3 takeaways before we end. 3 takeaways. Yep.
I'll handle this side.
Okay. And whoever decides.
Well, what's funny is I've learned I'm tracking the wrong things. Like everything I've been doing has been to contract, and it's not been what to get to contract. So that's what I'm putting, and that's part of this too. So, I mean, it affects all of this. So like, you said something a minute ago and I wrote it down, but I've already moved on. But what you're actually looking at. So I'm looking at the wrong things. And so this is making me look at the right things.
Hey, I'm new to everything. So I wrote down what you said. It doesn't have to be perfect to start, but it has to start to be perfect. Story of my life. So
All of us.
I'm going to write that down. I already did.
Hey, I have been guilty of preparing to prepare to prepare to prepare to never start. So
I am terrible at all of this. You can ask my wife; she will attest to that completely and totally. So the number one takeaway, and it was just about what Brian just went over, is get on it now, so that down the road you've saved yourself a whole lot of heartache and time and money. So
One thing I want to point out when you see these line items, not one of these lines say miscellaneous. So whatever expense you have, it gets booked into something.
I love that.
There shouldn't be a 10th line that says miscellaneous. That does not exist.
I love that. And to tag along with what you said and with what you just said as well, there's a great quote that changed my whole mindset. And it said, perfect is the enemy of done. So don't let perfection halt you from moving.
Have you ever read the book 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins? So it's great. It's all about getting started. So it's her 5-second rule. And I say that she talks about procrastination and the emotion behind procrastination. So if you haven't read it, it's a great book.
I'm gonna have to read.
I think the analogy is, okay, I got to get out of bed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then
And
get
do it.
yourself up.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's the 5-second rule by Mel Robbins. It's a very easy read. It is a very good book, though. Any other takeaways, ahas? I'd love to hear them. So we learn from the ahas as much as we do the class. What's that? So mine is actually, so if you call MSU and call the College of Business, so they have an accounting department there. And I would just ask them if they have anyone inside of the accounting department that's looking for an internship. And I think we could even as an ALC, so on the finance committee, we had this idea earlier in the year about maybe even reaching out to them and seeing if they would come and talk to the finance committee.
Yeah.
So
I thought that
And-
was great.
Yeah, next month we're actually having the Market Center CPA come in and talk about tax law, all that. So it'd be great to get the accounting coming in too. So different perspectives as well. Just how can we help set it up versus, oh, sorry.
How much does it generally cost? But with the MSU going and talking to them.
So, well, okay, QuickBooks I think is $400 a year. So if you want to have QuickBooks, I think it's $400 a year. It depends. I think if you want the desktop version or the online version. I mean, I'll tell you what I pay my bookkeeper to come in, and they're just a bookkeeper. And I have someone that is retired now that she's just looking for a little bit of extra money. And I think I pay her $25 an hour, and she works 1 to 2 hours a week usually. I mean, occasionally she's there for a long time, but that's if I've got something crazy going on, so like an event.
When you log into or you purchase QuickBooks, there's like an extra $50 or $60 you can pay to have it set them up for you. And so then after that, the next recommendation I would say is to open up a business account. Do not put your commission checks, any of that into your personal account because now you're running a business. So then you can hook your business up to your QuickBooks and then it sees all your expenses and then you can just click the itemized drop down button of where it needs to go into that bucket.
And if you're like me and you don't want to have to do any of that stuff, you can hire a company called Tax In-House. They've done mine for the last 8 years. They aren't the cheapest, but they do some of the top teams in all of Keller Williams, and their whole P&L and everything that they do through bookkeeping is through the MREA chart of accounts. So it comes back to you in our own language as a company. So just so you know, beautiful graphs come back. He's willing to coach you once a month. There's kind of a cool thing. It's called Tax In-House. You can say Tim McCall sent you and they'll take great care of you. Awesome. Thank you guys.
One more last plug. If you're interested in this conversation and you want to get more involved and learn more about it, this is what the finance committee on the ALC, we talk a lot about this from the Market Center perspective and about our personal profit and loss. So if this is something you want to learn more about, get better at, come to the finance committee meetings.
And I believe our meeting's tomorrow morning,
It actually is, yes.
tomorrow at 8 a.m. down here in the training center. So if you want to join us,
I love that.
you're more than welcome.
Yay. Well, everybody give them a round of applause. And we've made it. We've made it to the end of the day. And this last little piece that I want to talk about is called putting it all together. Okay, putting it all together. Because what you wrote down, the things that you learned, ideas you came up with, cool action steps that you want to take, absolutely like an event you came up with wanting to do, or hiring that CPA, or contacting the college like he just said, or coming to tomorrow's meeting here tomorrow morning, going over fundamentals of your financials. Putting that on the schedule, pulling those things out and actually time blocking for them, taking all this stuff, going back through it. Otherwise, if you put it on the shelf and you get back into your office and you just walk away from everything that you just got, because I guarantee you it was overwhelming. There's half the people in the room, they couldn't take it. You're the ones that made it. I want you to everybody give yourself a pat on the back. You made it through the class, and everything you wrote down is not valuable unless you make it work for you. So that's my hope right now, is to say, putting it all together. This is what we do. You don't have to do the evaluation. It would literally there's so many people you couldn't tag them all. And then I would say, like I said in the beginning, education is just entertainment unless you implement, right? That's it. That's it. So just make a commitment today that you're going to maybe even time block. Maybe that's what you'll do. You'll time block for tomorrow to go back into your book and pull out the things that were most important for you to take on. That we've worked with the 11252, right? If you've taken Quantum Leap with me, go to your 11252 to put sticky notes for everything that really mattered and plug them in on the year that you're going to, the rest of the year that you're going to do them. That can be a way. Or schedule time with me and go, this is what I got from the thing. What do I do? And we can set up your 411, which you learned about. Or you go, all right, I wrote a couple sentences on my GPS. What the heck do I do now? We can look at it together. Let's schedule some time. But this is the way it happens. And if we don't do it, you're part of the 90% that don't ever reach the level of success that they wanted to when they started in real estate. Cool? All right. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate you. And let's schedule some time.